Welcome on into the Wolverine.com podcast. Clayton Safey here with Chris Ballas and Anthony Broom, coming to you a day early on the bye week, Wednesday. This will be our regularly recorded Thursday show, but coming to you one day in advance. Please make sure to like this video if you're watching on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button as well. And as always, head to the Wolverine.com. Special deal right now, $1 for your first month of premium access. You're going to want to get in on that as we cover all things Michigan, NCAA case, Jim Harbaugh, and everything else with this 8-0 Michigan football team on the bye week. Big games coming up down the stretch as well. Basketball season around the corner too. Great to be with you guys. I will say that, although we'll talk about all this different stuff. NCAA case. We'll get into a little bit of basketball as well at the end, but how you guys hanging in there?
Trying, man. Always something in the bye week. Doesn't it seem like there's always something in the bye week? So here we are, though, and grinding. So it's gonna be an interesting season, fellas. It's gonna be interesting to see when the NCAA comes in, what they hit Michigan with, and how Michigan responds.
Yeah, it seems like every time someone opens their mouth and says, "Oh God, I bet you guys are looking forward to getting to the bye week," that's when all hell breaks loose. So this has been no exception. It's probably been as crazy as it's been during a bye week, but the show must go on, as they say. So yeah, good to be here though.
And the show will go on as we will. So great transition there, AB. As we will talk about our friends over at Prize Picks, our presenting sponsor. Football season is back. There's no better way to enjoy the games than by playing daily fantasy with Prize Picks. You select 2 to 5 players, predict if they will go more or less than their Prize Picks projection, and you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. All first-time users that deposit and use promo code Wolverine will receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. So if you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, Prize Picks will give you $50. We made some picks this week, as always. I got a couple in the NFL. Some of the college stuff, since it's Wednesday, still late to come in, but look for those if you're looking to make some picks on college as the weekend approaches. I got C.J. Stroud, Houston Texans quarterback, less than 239.5 passing yards against the Panthers. I think it might be a little inflated. Panthers defense, maybe not as bad against the pass as people think. And then Terry McLaurin, Washington Commanders receiver, less than 57.5 receiving yards against the Philadelphia Eagles. Flip side, Eagles defense, very, very good. What do you guys have this week?
Oh, I don't know about those picks, Clay. That sounds crazy to me. I'm going to go with Josh Allen, Buffalo quarterback. Less than 265.5 yards against that Tampa Bay defense. I think that Tampa Bay defense is pretty nasty. And Buffalo has not been playing good football. So Bryce Young, I've got him going more than 210.5 yards against Houston. I think that I just like the way that young man plays football, and I like that matchup for him. So I don't know about yours, Clay, but I sure like mine.
Those are 2 terrible picks, CB.
Well, I don't know about either. I think you both are full of it up to your ears, so to speak. I'm going with NBA is back. I'm going with a couple of NBA picks here since we're doing things on Wednesday. Victor Wembanyama, I have him at more than 20 points, plus rebounds, plus assists. I think that guy is an absolute freak. And then our boy, our godson, Franz Wagner of the Orlando Magic, I have him at less than 26.5 points, plus rebounds, plus assists. So a little basketball. We teased basketball early on, but jumping into NBA this time around.
Boy, I don't know about that Franz Wagner pick. We'll see.
I actually like the Franz pick. Am I weird for having watched NBA opening night last night for just a little while over playoff baseball?
I don't weird either,
but that's what I was doing.
I was a little busy.
Go to prizepicks.com, download the Prize Picks app today, use the promo code Wolverine for an instant deposit match up to $100. Again, promo code Wolverine for that instant deposit match for the first-time users. Let's get into the NCAA case against Michigan. Different things have come out and been reported, including by yourself, Chris, over at thewolverine.com. And people can, again, check out all of our coverage over there. $1 gets you premium access in for your first month. So make sure to take advantage of that. It'll get you through, almost the end of the season here. It'll also get you through a lot of this NCAA case. But some different things have come out since we last spoke on the Monday Night Podcast. Some of them pretty relevant, some of them not all that relevant. They're now, different schools outside of the Big Ten that Stallions reportedly bought tickets at their games. Connor Stallions, that is the analyst in question here. Clemson, Tennessee, the SEC championship game. The way I understand it with the championship games is teams that aren't on your schedule. It's not necessarily illegal to in-person scout those, and we're not sure that he personally did that himself or sent somebody else. Seems like it would probably be the latter in those cases at the very least. But those have come out, still kind of, looking at whether or not sending somebody to a game to then give you information or video back is against the rules based on the poorly worded bylaws that the NCAA has, specifically bylaw 1161 about off-campus in-person scouting. So that's still something that's at question, unless, of course, something came out that Connor Stallions was at games himself, which is obviously very, very possible. Chris, you were first to report as well. The NCAA is coming in on Thursday, could be postponed. They're often to do that. But to meet with Michigan, be interesting to see what comes of that. Lastly, a lot of stuff on social media, different things. Oh, here's a video of Connor Stallions on the sideline. Those don't necessarily prove anything. He's allowed to be on the sideline. He's allowed to help the coaches out during the games as an analyst. Sports Illustrated today releases an article with text between Stallions and a college football staffer from another school where he brags about some of his close relationships with a few different on-field coaches at Michigan. Also revealed that he wrote a 600-page document laying out plans to one day be the coach of Michigan, to run the program, different theories that he's had used in recruiting at his time at Navy, and how that has panned out, how that could help him. Again, doesn't actually prove anything. There's nothing wrong with writing a document like that. But your guys' thoughts now, a couple days removed from the last time we spoke on air about this and what's happened with the latest developments.
Yeah, I think I don't think that the worst has been, and you can read our recent column on this. I don't think the worst has been leaked about what, there are gray areas, right, that Michigan fans are clinging to, and maybe Michigan's clinging to that, okay, because we did this, it's not illegal as the law is written, and that's fair, and Dan Wetzel said something about North Carolina, for example, when he said, yeah, we had fake classes essentially, but they were open to our regular students too, so it didn't violate any NCAA laws or rules. So that's a loophole, right? So is there a loophole here? And would Michigan see it that way? Would the NCAA see it that way? If Michigan were to fight it in court, then it's something that probably the NCAA pulled back on that when North Carolina was going to take them to court, and they pulled back on Penn State when they were going to vacate wins when they decided to fight it in court. So if Michigan were to do that, then I think they would probably say, if say they wanted to come down and hammer them and say you can't play in the postseason this year, and Jim Harbaugh is suspended, I think that they would fight that. You're supposed to have 90 days allegations, from the date of the NCAA notice of allegations. They haven't even received one yet for Burgergate. I'm guessing they're going to lump these all together. But if they come tomorrow, or whether it's later in the week or next week, whenever it gets pushed to, I do know it was initially scheduled for tomorrow. That's a fact. Then I think it'll be one of those things where, okay, what do you guys plan to do about this? Will this be a back and forth negotiation of, how will you handle it? And maybe the Michigan lawyers coming back and saying, if we do this, is this going to be good enough type of thing? So that's my guess, and to some people's guess as to how that will go. However, you just don't know, because there might be things that they have that you don't know about, stuff that has not been leaked yet by Ohio State sources, if we're being honest. Yeah. And so we'll have to see where that goes. But, people are in the media is always going to sensationalize everything and try to make it look worse than it is. There's no doubt that it's a bad look. I don't care, what anybody says. It's a bad look when you're recording sidelines of games or having people do that, no matter who else is doing it. And it's estimated that 75 to 85%, I think one national writer said, or one coach said to him, that guys are stealing signs. So we know damn well that Ohio State was probably doing it in 2018 and 2019 when they were putting up record numbers on Michigan. And the way it was explained to us was, boy, were they in for a surprise in 2021 when they didn't get what they were expecting to see, right? But all this talk about last year's Ohio State game, well, he's looking at the sidelines and he's looking at this and he's got a chart. Well, Ohio State acknowledged before the game that they knew that Michigan was doing that and they changed their signals. So it didn't help them. So shame on them for not using it against Michigan, number one, and number two, for getting their ass pounded 45-23. So you know what? Part of it's a coping mechanism. It certainly isn't the worst scandal in NCAA history, as some rivals are calling it, and a lot of people around the country are still saying it's a joke.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that the major talking point right now is that, well, did they technically violate a rule? Like, let's be honest here. Like, the spirit of that is that something shady was going on regardless. So, to me, I think there are a couple of things that are clear. Just based on what we know right now, is that, I don't think that this is going to have. Again, we'll see what happens with the investigation. The NCAA typically doesn't move fast, and I do think if Michigan finds itself in court, that it will have. I mean, based on how these rules are written, I think that they're going to have a defense that might give them a chance to kind of win, not win the case, but have their punishment not be as severe. But to me, it's clear that with how the NCAA moves, like even if they get a notice of allegations tomorrow, you're talking about having 90 days to respond to that, which takes you into mid-January. I don't see it affecting this season. I don't see a scenario where, if the Big Ten comes out and says, "Oh, you're ineligible for the Big Ten title game," no matter what happens, Fox isn't going to be happy with that. And let's be honest there too. Fox and NBC, CBS, they're basically the de facto Big Ten commissioner right now. So with that in mind, the college football playoff also operates outside of the jurisdiction of the NCAA. In the here and now, I don't think that this is going to affect this season. That's a strong opinion based on what we know about how these deals are set up. But in terms of vacating wins, something else we've seen in the past too is that typically only happens when you've had ineligible players on the roster, and I don't think that's the case at Michigan either. So it's going to be a root canal. This is going to continue to drag out. And Chris, I like the way that you put it in a column earlier this week, is that, and I believe it may have been, via something Dan Wetzel said too, is that, maybe the biggest punishment out of all of this for Michigan is having to bite the bullet that, you're institutionally, there's maybe some irreparable damage in terms of what your reputation is. So we'll see where it goes from here. We haven't learned a lot since the last time we were on the air. The Sports Illustrated piece that came out, I think more so just kind of was a character study on who
Right.
Connor Stallions was and things like that. But he's still with us, but in terms of what he was to the program. So we'll see what happens from there. But that's my read on where we're at right now.
And you're right, though. That is how Michigan feels, too, that they don't expect anything to happen this year. Speaking of the sources that we've spoken with, nor should there be, frankly. And you know what? Michigan State had ample time to change their signs. They can't make any excuses for the 49-0 embarrassment. And people are acting like this is the only reason that Michigan's winning football games is because they are better at stealing signs, which is, again, something that everybody does to some extent. So, which is, we all know is ridiculous, but fans of other schools and rivals will use it as a coping mechanism, fellas, to deal with the fact that they got their butts kicked.
Well, there's this too. Like, Michigan's not going to send 15, 16, 17 guys to the NFL draft because they were stealing signs. Like, they have better players than all of these teams do right now. And with that, I don't know if we brought this up already. I'm sorry, but with that 11.6.1, I think it was as recent as 2 years ago, 2021. It was put out there for them to even remove that in-person scouting, provision in the rule book, because they say that the argument was it does provide a minimal competitive advantage. So for me, with all that being said, I think once the bluster dies down, really what you're looking at is the institutional damage to your reputation. And the elephant in the room is what it does to Jim Harbaugh and his status as well, if he's just done with it.
Yeah, no doubt. You look at it's a great point too to come back to is, all right, well, how severe is this? Even if a rule was broken, if you're Michigan, the minimal competitive advantage, the NCAA's own words, is a key point. I do think the way this is being portrayed, and Chris, you alluded to it a little bit too, with this being the biggest story in sports and whatever. And Colin Cowherd, I thought, did a great job talking about that yesterday as well, where if this was Purdue, it's probably not as big of a deal. Just like if Kirk Cousins was in Tom Brady's shoes during Deflategate, it probably wasn't going to be the biggest deal. It would have been on Saturday Night Live and not the front page of everything, every sports site and everything else with national media. A couple of things that are kind of concerning that we touched on quite a bit on Monday are, the leaks and the fact that some obscure, even Ohio State writers somehow have a lot of this information before anybody else at the same time as Pete Thamel, who obviously Ohio State has in their back pocket. Then you have potential leaks from the NCAA side, and John U. Bacon going on a Columbus radio station this morning saying he knows for a fact or guarantees that Jim Stapleton, who's a University of Michigan graduate, is now on the NCAA's Committee of Infractions, was on the Minnesota Vikings board when Jim was vehemently against Jim Harbaugh receiving that job back in early 2022, is a source of these leaks. So it's kind of interesting how we're seeing this get played out now. As Anthony, you said, kind of a, not a character assassination, but like different things about Connor Stalions trying to make him seem like a weirdo or whatever, which he might be a weird guy, who knows? But like that has anything to do with any sort of proof against him. It's just kind of interesting how this is playing out in the public eye.
Yeah, and it is interesting that Jim Stapleton's attending athletic department events recently and stuff like that. Somebody said they saw him at one of the events I was at. I didn't know what he looked like. I really hope that's not the case. People talking about how he is still heavily involved with some of the higher ups at Michigan. And, it's one thing. Yeah, you certainly can't tell somebody who to be friends with, but man, that would be a bad look. So I'm anxious to see where that goes. If indeed what John Bacon says is true, but I don't, reading some of the stuff about past stuff about Jim Stapleton, boy, there's a lot to digest there. That's all I'll say. And I don't want to get myself in any trouble here, so I think I'll stop there. But to me, Michigan certainly seems to have a lot of enemies, that pose as friends too often. You go back to Stretchgate, the same thing. You look at this one now as well. You look at all the egregious things going on at other programs around the country and how it doesn't seem like there's anybody lining up to blow whistles on anybody, even though, they may have been wronged or whatever. So it's weird to me, but that does not excuse if they broke rules, the breaking of the rules. And so we'll have to, again, I said before when this happened, I said, when people was like, oh, this is a witch hunt and so on and so forth, I said, well, let's wait and see the facts, because normally stuff like this doesn't leak and doesn't come out unless there are facts to back it up. Let's see what they are and how severe they are. And now I'm going to say the same thing, when everybody is rushing to judgment, let's see what the facts are. Let's see how Michigan reacts before everybody freaks out.
Yeah. The thing is, like, again, we make it very clear, like it's extremely likely based on what's out there that rules were, if not broken, the line was heavily straddled, recklessly straddled. And with that being the case, like, it's going to, spoiler alert, like, it's going to cost Connor Stalions his job and probably cost him his future in college football. The one thing I'll say about the SI article that, if people haven't seen it, is that I think based on what's in there, it's weird to even say this, like, it might be, if the defense from Michigan is that this was a rogue guy that was, trying to advance through the ranks and impress his superiors, I think it probably helps their defense, the SI story. It's not, it's not them, it's not there are no new allegations or anything in there. But yeah, that's just kind of where we're at right now. It's every day or two, seems like there's another layer of the onion that gets peeled back. So, I think it would be foolish to kind of just plant a flag and say witch hunt, or say that it's no big deal. With what we know right now, I think that everything we've already laid out in terms of what the punishment could look like, etc., I think seems reasonable, but we just kind of have to wait and see what else comes out on it.
Yeah, but when you look at the headlines, that's what bothers the crap out of me. Who gives a crap?
Yes.
He texted that he stole opponent signals from TV. Oh my God! Start clutching your pearls here. So anybody and everybody does that. And if you think, by the way, that SEC schools or whoever don't have 15 or 20 people videotaping every aspect of everything at every game that has 100,000 people and is you got fans sending stuff to coaches and stuff like that, you're out of your mind. Okay, this is not a huge competitive advantage, unless you're not, unless you're subscribed to the theory that nobody else is doing this. So, yeah. Anyway, yep.
Yeah, but I agree. The headline is crazy, and the fact that would be some sort of bombshell report is a little bit crazy. And then he's allowed to write a document or a manifesto, as he called it, probably half jokingly, and now it's turned into manifesto has all sorts of negative connotations. I feel like these days, when really you look at what that word actually means, it's nothing bad, but yeah, it's just interesting how it's being played out. The last layer of this, Anthony, you kind of mentioned it earlier a little bit, is okay. Well, Jim Harbaugh was about to get a contract extension. It doesn't seem like that's going to happen right away, whether you agree with that or not. I happen to disagree with that. That should be the case. I mean, I think if he's not going to end up being your coach, if he doesn't deserve to be your coach, you can still get rid of him after paying him what he deserves. He still wouldn't be getting what he deserves. And if you want him to be your coach, then wouldn't you want him to get what he deserves? That would be my theory. Seems like this is going to be on hold, Chris. And that's Michigan kind of. It almost feels like Michigan playing into the hands potentially of the NCAA, where you're taking it way more seriously than maybe a lot of other schools would do, including with keeping a coach happy and keeping him around.
Basically, we've heard they're going to take their medicine, and ask for mercy or whatever, and depending on what is presented, and that's the Michigan way, right? And I get it. That's just. Michigan holds itself to a higher standard, blah, blah, blah type of stuff. But if you want to be a major player in college football, and this is what you're going to let take your coach down. And let's be clear here. Michigan is at the pinnacle now, I think, of college football. If they win a national championship this year, and they certainly look like one of the best teams to me, and thanks in large part to J.J. McCarthy, you had this thing humming. No matter what happens here, people can say, well, you can just plug somebody else in, an assistant coach, and it's going to continue. No, there's a reason that Jim Harbaugh is one of the best coaches in football, in the history, frankly, of football. It's because it's of Jim Harbaugh. So losing him would absolutely be a blow. If it were me, and it's not, I would insist at that. And I would say, hey, look, we're signing him. We'll have a clause in there that we are, we can get rid of him if he gets these major violations. We will fight for him if these major violations are deemed not as serious as other people think they are. But it just isn't really the Michigan way.
Well, the old throw the old moral turpitude clause in there. That's been a familiar term over the last few months. I have, first off, I mean, it's kind of a twofold issue in that this contract should have been done in the winter. So the fact that we are even still here anyways is maddening. And the fact that, now they could press pause on it is, again, I feel like, I guess you kind of have to, because if there's findings of an investigation that, there's more wrongdoing, I get it. But that's the other thing too, is that he is still under contract. And that's what I'm sure the people in the administration will argue. Well, he's under contract. We don't have no plans to get rid of him. He's still under contract, but that I can see from their perspective now why there would be the hesitancy to, rush to sign him to a raise with what's in the news. But should have never got to this point in the first place. Like he should have been the highest paid coach in the Big Ten, probably last winter, not even winter of 2023. So from there again, I would just, and not that any of these people are listening to this, maybe they are, but any of these people in the administration or academia who are looking to do something brash because of what's out there now, talk to people in the sport, talk to coaches, talk to people that actually know what's going on, because from their perspective, that's why we're seeing so much bluster on social media about all this, is because people don't understand what does and does not go on in major big time college football programs. So if you want to slap them on the wrist, fine. Like if you want to, loop this in with the Burgergate stuff and add to the suspension, fine. But, if there should be no question that he's your head coach moving forward, unless there is evidence of more wrongdoing, which could come. We don't know. But the fact that that a contract has to be put on pause now when it should have been signed months ago to begin with is that's another self-inflicted administrative wound. There's no other way around that.
Yeah, it's kind of like he's dealing with enough with the NCAA. Why not take his side rather than kind of add on to the issues that he'd be dealing with, which would potentially, if you tick him off, he could leave if he has a different option. And it feels like, I think the fear from a lot of Michigan fans I've talked to is that Michigan won't have the correct backbone to fight the NCAA like a lot of these other schools do in cases that are much more severe. But we'll have to see how that plays out, how potential meeting late this week plays out as well. Let's talk basketball before we do. Talk about our friends over at Rogue Shop. Go check out rogueshop.com if you have issues sleeping, chronic pain, or have anxiety/stress. When you use promo code THEWolverine, that's THE Wolverine, get 10% off your first order. Rogue Shop sells CBD, THC, edibles, tinctures, smokables, bath salts, pain creams, topicals, vapes, candles, soaps, pretty much anything you can think of. They handcraft all of their topical soaps, candles, bath salts, massage oils, and tinctures. They grow their own cannabis in their manufacturing facility. All of their products are made with their own cannabis. Their website, rogueshop.com, ROGUE shop.com, has a 24/7 chat function where customers can ask them anything. So if you're new to, cannabis and all this, you can hit them up, tell them what you're going through. They will give you the proper suggestions. If you already are in this space and you use a lot of this stuff, switch over to Rogue Shop. They can get you on what is best for you. They're America's .1 online dispensary and health and wellness shop. They are a true small business. That's rogueshop.com, ROGUESHOP.com. Use the promo code THEWolverine and get 10% off your order. Let's do a couple minutes of basketball talk before we get out of here. Michigan had their media day last week. We got to talk to just about every member of the program. Juwan Howard, who's, of course, still recovering from his heart procedure, not being one of them, but a lot of insight on the team. They held an open practice portion there, or open portion of practice, and then an open scrimmage in front of 1,000 or 2 fans on Sunday afternoon, which was kind of interesting to watch as well. Anthony, I want to start with you coming out of the scrimmage and what your biggest takeaway is, because I read your observations piece coming out of it, and I thought it was really good stuff.
Yeah, I think a lot of solid parts. I don't know if they're, again, I think it was a confirmation of a lot of things as opposed to learning, something bad about them or not feeling good about it. I'm still kind of formulating what the predictions are for them, but a lot of good, solid pieces. I don't know how many high-end pieces they have. I don't know if they have a lead dog. I think that Doug McDaniel and Terrace Reed were probably their 2 best, most consistent guys. But people on the message board have been asking about Yusuf Kayat. I think that his shot has come along, still kind of lost on defense, but I think he's a playable piece this year. You're going to see more of him. Trey Jackson was, talk about all 3 of those transfers that came in. To me, Trey Jackson was the one that I walked out of that scrimmage the most impressed with. The shot looks fluid. He's got the green light. He's 6'10". He's got the length. He's got the wingspan. Looks like he's going to play, on the wings. So I think that he could be, maybe came in with the least amount of fanfare of those 3 transfers, but he might wind up being the most surprising one. Kamwa as steady. Namari Burnett had it was a wonky day, but he's never really shot well. Didn't shoot well on Sunday. They had him playing backup point guard, or he used the point guard for I believe the blue squad. Jalen Welland's still out. So George Washington was playing a little bit of point as well, I believe. I don't know. I'm still skeptical about this group. I really am. I think they could be really good. I think they could be good defensively, but I just don't know where the consistent offense is going to come from.
Yeah. And the big question for me is why hasn't Trey Jackson put it together before now, and why did his minutes go down last year and stuff like that, right? Because he is talented and you can see it out there physically. So is the game moving too fast for him on the defensive end? These are things that we're going to have to find out when these guys play together, but appreciated you guys being there. I thought the coverage was outstanding, and And as Clay said, Big Ten champs are bust, baby. Didn't you say that?
Did I say that?
Did I just put those words in your mouth? I'm sorry.
Get one bye in the Big Ten tournament or bust. Don't play on Wednesday night in the Big Ten tournament. I didn't say that either. No, I mean it is interesting with the expectations with this team, how low they are, how you get them talking about, oh, we don't have to prove anything to anybody. Like, we feel like we're gonna exceed expectations. It doesn't matter what people are saying. I mean, if we went to the media day of a lot of the other teams picked near the bottom of the Big Ten, they're probably saying similar things. At the end of the day, someone's got to finish down there. Not saying it's going to be Michigan. I do agree with a lot of what you said, Anthony. I think Trey Jackson was the most impressive to me on Sunday relative to, our thoughts on him kind of coming in. He looked more fluid offensively and with the ball in his hands than I thought he was going to. Defensively, I think, what we saw from them the prior week when we got to watch a little bit of practice was they're imploring him to be a little bit more physical defensively, and I think that's been an issue for him. And I think, Chris, with him not playing as much last year had more to do with them needing him to play the 5 at Seton Hall last year, given the personnel that they had. They had some injuries down there. They had him play that spot. I asked him about that at media day, and he said, yeah, he was willing to do it, but he didn't seem very thrilled about that, and I don't think that position suited him all that well. But yeah, the guard depth is going to be interesting. The fact that Namari Burnett was playing point guard, I know you want Jalen Llewellyn back, but we still don't know when that's going to be. He's practicing with, in the non-contact type of stuff, not in the scrimmage deals. So you're going to want him. George Washington, bright future. I really like George Washington. I don't know how early it's going to click for him, but he's he's got a good shot. And kind of just excited to see how he develops within this system. But yeah, any other basketball thoughts as we near the November 3rd is the exhibition game next Friday, which is crazy.
I believe it's George Washington III, just so that people don't get confused. He is the grandson of the president, not the president himself. So
yeah,
a dad joke, right?
While we're on the topic of him, like I said, he was. If I had to name a top 3 guys coming out of that scrimmage, it's probably Trey Jackson, probably George Washington, and then Terrace Reed. I think you see he looks more trim. The form on the free throws is much improved. I had him at 5 for 7 from the free throw line. So
one air ball.
He did airball one. He's going to do that every now and then, and he doesn't listen. I mean, we take. I don't want to say people took Hunter Dickinson for granted, but at times he could be kind of automatic around the basket. I don't think Terrace Reed will ever be that, but I liked the touch we saw around the basket from him too. So keep an eye on it. This team is going to go as its sophomores go, I think, and we'll see what the older guys can add from there. But Doug McDaniel, Terrace Reed will ultimately probably determine what this looks like.
And I will say that Namari Burnett, when he plays in position, I think we'll get a better idea of what he can do. And I think he's practiced a lot better than he scrimmaged, so don't give up on him.
Right. When you're playing out of position there, and it's hard to learn to some of it when you split the team up and guys are playing in different positions. Like Terrence Williams at times was kind of the 2 on his team. They were switching teams up a little bit as well. I agree. Terrace Reed, nice hook shot on one shot. Doug McDaniel looked pretty good and a little bit more comfortable, although he's always kind of had that type of mentality. And then Olivier Kamwa, he was a little bit disappointing in that he didn't make his shots, but he did some impressive things on both ends. Sick block on Terrace Reed as he was going up for a dunk, and it was kind of like, how did he, Terrace thought for sure he was going to slam it. So, I mean, those two were battling in the post, and he was having to defend Terrace basically the entire time. Missed a couple of his shots, had even one around the rim that didn't go, but I mean, he was getting good looks, and his passing really stood out as we kind of saw from him at Tennessee as well. So I still think he's this team's best player, but I do agree with you, AB, that all right, you kind of have these pieces, but how big of a leap Doug takes and how good Terrace can be as the guy who's kind of replacing what Hunter Dickinson did is going to determine a lot of what this team is. And then depth, and you got to have the guards healthy and all that. But yeah, going to be interesting with the exhibition game next week. So make sure to follow along over at thewolverine.com for coverage of that, for coverage of Michigan football. Wolverines still number 2 in the country, 8-0, heading towards their November push. We got the NCAA case as well, news coming on that. Great reporting, especially from our Chris Ballas. And make sure to get our $1 deal right now. $1 for your first month of premium access. So it's basically free, and you get in there, you get on the message board, you join in on the conversation, you see what the latest is going on. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like the video, hit the subscribe button as well, and we'll see you next time.